The movie begins in a world after a disaster. In a small area that's full of life, there's a glass building. A sign warns people not to enter. A lone scavenger tries to sneak in and gets shot in the head. 3 girls, B, her sister Evie, and B's daughter Daisy, come and take valuable items from the dead person. They wear protective masks to avoid breathing the toxic air. They take his organs and bury his body in a shallow grave. Inside the glass building, the girl's brother, Gabe, is waiting for them without protective gear. The girls enter and tell him to stay away. Gabe has memory loss due to the toxic air outside called the shred, which makes people forget their memories. The family calls the people outside the forgetters. Gabe was exposed to the shred at a very young age and can't do simple things like reading or using the toilet at night. They all gather around their mother, who takes care of them and has given them strict orders about what to do with outsiders who trespass. B's daughter, Daisy, wants to see an animal and hopes her uncle, Luca, who ran out of the sanctuary, will return and tell her stories. The family performs rituals to keep their plants and trees healthy and provide clean oxygen. They bury the organs of the trespassers in the soil as a sacrifice. The next day, B stands guard with her rifle and spots another stranger approaching. He removes his gas mask before passing out. B decides to bring him into the Glasshouse, hoping he might have information about Luca. Evie warns her sister about breaking the rules, but B is determined to save the man's life. They bring the man to their mother, who is initially angry but eventually agrees to help him. She teaches the girls how to stitch a wound while she tends to the stranger's leg. The mother then tees Gabe and the stranger's ankles together. In the morning, Gabe has an accident and wets his bed, which scares and shocks him. The girls wake up and clean his sheets. V is condescending about cleaning up after Gabe each time. Evie stays to help wash her brother, including his private parts. Then they change the stranger's bandages while V starts to behave inappropriately. She asks Evie to fetch some water while she remains and shaves the stranger's beard, even though he's pretending to be unconscious. He wakes up and B warns him not to try anything. The whole family gathers as their mother questions the stranger who can't remember his name. He came from the eastern city, but he claims it's nothing like this place. He asks if they'll let him go, but the mother is concerned he might forget their kindness and become a risk. He'll stay and do the work like everyone else. Daisy asks the stranger if he's seen a kangaroo or a sheep on his journey, but he says a kangaroo would be starving because this is the only green patch for 3 days of walking. The mother instructs Daisy to take Gabe and set up a warning for other trespassers using the body of the previous one as an example. They start working on cutting up the last intruder limb by limb. Meanwhile, B goes to the stranger and flirts with him, offering him a plate of their crops so he can choose what he likes best. Evie comes back to her sister and B tries to get her to leave so she can have privacy with the stranger. Later, Evie warns her sister not to trust the stranger too quickly, but B feels like she already knows him well enough. Daisy strikes up another conversation with the stranger about favorite animals, and he shows her what a horse looks like. He offers to carve one for her with a knife if she can get him one. Daisy quickly gets a knife from her sister's basket in the garden. The stranger carves the horse in secret, but Gabe catches him. He shows Gabe how the pieces fit together and hands it to him to try, but Gabe struggles with basic tasks and gets upset. He starts breaking things and losing control. The family rushes in to calm him down, but they can't. Gabe hits B, prompting Daisy to unlock the chains on the stranger's ankle. The stranger helps restrain Gabe, and they eventually calm him down. The mother allows the stranger to move around freely. Later that night, the stranger joins B by the mirror. She calls him Luca, but he corrects her, saying he can't be Luca because he doesn't feel for her the way a brother should. B insists that means he is Luca. The next day, the stranger, B, and Daisy work in the garden. He goes to get a brush from the seed shed and finds Evie inside. He tries to have a friendly conversation and asks her about her memory box, a game she used to play with her brother, Luca. Evie doesn't trust the stranger, and she's upset that he's spending time with B and Daisy, as she feels like he's replacing her. The mother talks to the stranger and reminds him that everyone in the family has a role to play. She suggests that his role might be to have children with B. Later, B and the stranger are on guard duty when they see someone approaching. B aims to shoot, but the stranger starts distracting her by touching her. She manages to take the shot and kills the trespasser, and the girls deal with the body later. Evie goes into the garden and sees B and the stranger having sex. It brings back memories of seeing the same thing with Luca instead of the stranger. She runs away, and the stranger spots her. When she goes back to work in the garden, the stranger approaches and asks if she enjoyed watching. She throws a tool at him and tells him that his tricks may work on B, but not on her. She warns him to stop manipulating B, whose mind is fragile. The stranger finds Evie's memory box in the garden, with Luca's letter necklace inside. He takes it. Later, the family gathers for their daily ritual, but Evie stops her mother, saying the ritual is sacred and the stranger doesn't belong there. B protests and says Evie is the one disrupting the ritual. The stranger takes out Luca's necklace and claims he kept it safe. Evie accuses him of using their memories against them, especially B. Daisy wants to let him be Luca, but Evie insists they need to face the truth to survive. The mother finally speaks and expresses disappointment in B for putting her feelings for Luca above the family's well-being. B blames Evie for spying on her with Luca in the past and being irresponsible with Gabe, which led to his exposure to the shred. Evie leaves the room and later talks to her mother in her bedroom. She's frustrated because she feels like she's the only one who cares about the truth. Her mother reassures her and asks for her trust, saying that she has always kept the family safe and will continue to do so. She mentions that once the child is born, Luca will be gone, just as he's always been. Meanwhile, Gabe is awake, hearing the sounds of B and the stranger having sex above him. The sounds reach Evie and even her mother in the other room. It's just how things go. Some days pass, and Bea visits her mother. She's advised to keep herself safe from the shred, which is crucial for the baby growing inside her. Her mother explains that the leaves around them provide fresh air, but sacrifices are necessary because the plants can't make enough oxygen for everyone, including the baby. B is told she needs to choose between the fake Luca and the newborn baby. She screams that she can't decide, causing Gabe to run outside in fear without protective gear. The stranger helps Evie and brings Gabe back inside. B approaches the stranger and suggests they escape together, as her mother plans to send Luca away once the baby is born, which she can't accept. Meanwhile, Gabe climbs into Evie's bed and makes advances. She stops him but offers some comfort. Later, while working inside, Gabe becomes upset when the stranger implies that Evie's affection for him is just out of pity. Gabe throws a plank that breaks a window, but they quickly fix it. The stranger talks to the mother and suggests that Gabe could be a growing threat and might be better off outside, with another child on the way to take his place. However, the mother has made her decision and says it's time for the stranger to leave. The stranger declines B's invitation to stay while she and the other girls are showering, saying he needs to do sentry duty. He goes to confront the mother instead, and a heated argument escalates. In the heat of the moment, he becomes violent, choking her as she calls him an actor and mentions others who are pretending. As she falls unconscious, he hits her on the head, which leads to her death. The stranger places the dead body next to Gabe and releases his restraints, making it seem like Gabe is responsible for her death. He confronts the stranger angrily as the girls wake up and rush into the room, discovering their mother's lifeless body, with all the signs pointing towards Gabe. While the girls grieve over their deceased mother in the other room, the stranger restrains Gabe and opens the window. He finally reveals that he witnessed his own family get exposed to the shred, so he decided to take off his mask and forget, but the toxic air didn't affect him. Seeing Gabe gradually calming down, effectively forgetting the recent events, he closes the window. Meanwhile, B finds the memory box in the room and suddenly recalls a day when she was on sentry duty. She signaled for the intruder to identify if it was Luca or not. However, when she saw the person reaching for something, she shot and killed him. It turns out that the person she killed was indeed Luca, who was trying to signal back with his flashlight. B, overwhelmed with grief and anger, took off her mask and buried the body outside, which she now digs up and discovers. It's revealed that Evie had known the truth and kept B's secret all these years, leading B to believe that Luca was still alive. Stricken by grief, Bee decides to return outside to forget everything, despite Evie's attempts to stop her. The stranger intervenes and helps prevent Bee from leaving. In the end, Bee goes outside anyway, with the stranger telling Evie to let her go. They return to Gabe, who is now unresponsive and lost. When Bee returns, she appears cheerful as if nothing ever happened. Evie laments that the shred is taking everyone, leaving her as the sole person to remember. But the stranger reassures her that he won't forget either. They hold each other close and make love. In the meantime, Bee advises Daisy to remove her mask and allow Evie to lead their memories, just like their mother used to do. Evie steps into her mother's role as she performs the ritual and pledges to carry on her work. Soon, it becomes evident that Gabe has started wandering outside without a mask, completely unaware of his surroundings. The same goes for Bee, who has been pregnant for a few months. In the final scene, Gabe is seen digging in the ground and uncovers two skeletons wearing necklaces with the names of Bee and Evie. It turns out that their mother had kept the names and necklaces of the people who lived before, as they assumed their identities. The stranger is on watch, observing Gabe when he notices an intruder approaching. He takes out his rifle but has a change of heart at the last moment and shoots Gabe, who has lost his mind, to make room for the newcomer.
Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.